Words are like my sun, my moon, my earth, the blood of my transmission, conveying visions as you listen. I sort them with conviction. Words are ammunition, knowledge, intelligence, diction. Words are where I'm capable of going and what I'm able to see, and for opening the minds of those who flee. Words are for freedom, thought, research, data, signals, symbols, science, categorizing, surprising, rejoicing, provoking, everything and everyone. Knowledge, skill, vocabulary, rhythm, word up, poetry. Do you have a voice?
So, as artists, man, it's like we got this never-ending piece of canvas, right? And what we paint is not always going to appease to everybody's eyes, and that's fine. Like, it's not supposed to. And I'm only as good as my mood. So right now, all these patterns in my head, they're like mosaic.
I think they got me figured wrong, Pop. They like Zilla not in my top 10, 20, 30 even. Ain't even know he dropped, but yeah, I'm still here through all that chitter-chat. All that slick talking under your breath, mumbling, let me get it back. Still one of the nicest, even if not considered. Wasn't pick of the litter, but still shit on the illest. I'm cracked. What you hearing is grown folk on a drum roll. Literary prose from one pro to the whole globe. Moods change like seasons. Yo, my seasons right now is just a sprinkle of one of the many reasons I rhyme. You catching me at a time when time's all I really have, and this path is unpaved, and some days I'm sitting round bummy and unshaved. Scribble couple lines in the pages that my mind displays. I can't always be the shoot 'em up cat. I got a record that follows me from the past that I can never take back. Take back, take back, take back.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to the 4th episode of Word Up, What's the Word podcast. My name is Era, and today we have V-Zilla, also known as Zilla, from Army of the Pharaohs. Just now you were listening to the Mosaic intro, the Moonshine remix off of the Mosaic Musick, the Stockholm sessions. Really excited about the conversation we're about to have. Make sure you take the time to share this podcast, let other people know about it. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Let's get into this conversation with V-Zilla.
Yo.
Yo, what's up, man?
What's the deal? What's going on, dog?
Oh man, chilling. It's been a crazy week, but I want to thank you for taking the time to have a little conversation, man.
Yeah, no doubt, definitely, man, not a problem.
So you're out in Philadelphia right now?
Yeah, I'm in Philly right now for sure. About 3 years and some change, man.
Man, so what's the difference between Philadelphia and Houston? I mean, I know that's a loaded question on many levels, but just off the top, what are some differences?
Man, that's a laundry list of things, man. I think the biggest difference obviously is going to be the price of living, man. Everything in the East Coast is extremely expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would almost go as far to say that it's doubled everything. It's doubled in everything from what I've known, being in the South, the majority of my life. It's not that I wasn't privy to the East Coast. I mean, I've toured. I've been out here. I got friends out here and group members that live here, and that was the first thing. And the second thing is the lack of authentic Mexican food, which drives me absolute nuts. Philly's got a big Puerto Rican, Dominicano, culture here that, the demographic is huge, and Mexicanos are pretty much regulated to one side of Philadelphia, which would, in my personal opinion, is like South Philadelphia. And I had to learn to roll my own flour tortillas because you can't get that here.
Yeah.
Menudo, tamales, everything that I was accustomed to. There's no taco trucks with any banging tacos right around the corner. So the second differential would definitely be the food, the cuisine. At least in terms of what I miss the most about, home. That's definitely a big factor for me. So, but I will say that, Philly is definitely diverse. Obviously the home of the cheesesteak.
Yeah.
But after a while, man, I'm not a person that wants to be eating hoagies and cheesesteaks and pizza every day of the week. Like, it just doesn't That's not me, man. So definitely a
Yeah.
big difference. Definitely a big difference in the food, man. The food is a huge difference.
No, definitely. That you know, even when you talk about other, you know, Latin communities and whatnot, but there's nothing like Tex-Mex food. You know,
Yeah, and even the Tex-Mex places that they do have here,
it's not the same.
no, man, it doesn't rival like a Chewy's back home or something, or whatever
Yeah,
is franchised that is considered Tex-Mex back home, or Monterey House, or whatever it may be.
got you.
Even their Tex-Mex doesn't mirror that. And I think because the majority of the Mexicanos that are in Philadelphia, they're more Indio, so they're coming from more up top, or they're migrating in from like Chicago area. They're East Coast to
Got you.
begin with, just staying in the East Coast. So the way they prepare dishes is going to be totally different, man. Like it's not that close to the border down south that we're accustomed to. You know what I mean?
Right, right. I've driven in New York City. I've driven in all these other places, but man, it really bugged me out just the way that everybody parks. It's like wherever there's space, you can.
Yeah, pretty much. That would definitely be the third major difference is the housing. Prior to moving to Philadelphia, I had never seen or never even known what a row home was. Row homes, they resemble smaller versions of a brownstone, like New York City, or smaller versions of a townhouse of some sort. Like maybe I can't even compare it to a townhouse because it's not that big, but that
Yeah,
creates that whole feeling of everybody being on top of each other. And while we do have a parking space behind our home, like you're right, everybody parks on the street, and every neighborhood, pretty much within the city limits, is like row home, man, and it changes. And
mm,
some of the row homes in some of these neighborhoods, they more so resemble like projects. You know what I'm saying? Like
got you.
um, we're fortunate to live in a nice little quiet pocket. We my wife keeps the house, immaculate, man. So, I don't I'm not stressing too much. But yeah, you're right, dog. Parking is like, yeah, just if it fits, like, there it is. Like that's where you got to park at. I never park on the street though. I try not to, man, because you never know who's gonna come through there late at night and bang you up. I see it
Got
every day. I see it. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, like I said, I was, trying to find a parking spot. We were trying to go to some restaurant or something. This was back in maybe about 2006, and I was just like, yo, I had never felt claustrophobic like that in a
Yeah,
car.
man. It's crazy.
I
Yeah.
thought I was going to hit someone because there was, I mean, just people. And like I said, I've driven in Times Square, I've driven all these other places, like, and I didn't feel that way. So
Right.
it was something different. But
Philly's tough. Philly's tough, man.
yeah.
It's a tough city, man. Very, very tough city.
No, for sure. So let's get into some of the name changes you've gone over in your career. Um, Starting, because I met you as VG Skills,
Right,
right?
right, right.
And then I remember you coming back in as V-Zilla, and now you're just going by Zilla, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the change was just inevitable. Like, I don't know. I've always just used the initials because I was
Hmm.
never really, man, on trying to pick that perfect name. You know what I'm saying? Let me just take the initials of my name, throw the skills behind it, and see what we could do with it. And it was cool. But the Zilla really came like from the fact that I used to always be on, the UGHH boards way back in the day.
Yeah.
And there was a kid from New York, man. His name was Robert Casado, and he used to always be like, "Yo, man, you're a monster, man. You're a monster. Like, yo, everything that you do, man, it's like Godzilla. You just breathing fire on these boys." And I was like, "Okay, bet." Like, I took that and I liked the moniker, and I was like, "All right, let me see if we can't just flip it and we run with." And it wasn't until I did a show in New York that I forgot what happened. My hype man at the time, my man Chico, he's still
Hmm.
a friend of mine. He didn't make it into town that night for the show. And I ended up having to do like my normal 30-minute, 35-minute set, by myself without the hype man. I wasn't prepared for it because, he fills me in on my ad libs. I used to do a really high energetic, type of set. And I was like, yo, I'm really going to need my hype man. But he didn't show up. And me and Comp, my DJ,
Yeah.
we beasted through it. And everyone was like, yo, dog, you got ox and lump. You like Godzilla. And that's where it really stuck, man. I was like, all right, we're gonna flip this and just run with it. And the rest is so-called history, so to say. Like I just kept that moniker and ran with it. And that was it, man. It gave me that sense of like, like you can't be larger than what your persona is. I'm a very humble, laid back dude on the regular, but when I'm on stage, I really try to go and leave everything out there. You know what I'm saying?
No, for sure, definitely. Shout out to Comp One, definitely. One of the illest DJs, and I'd say all of Texas, if not the U.S.
Yeah, Comp's real dope, man. He's a very veteran DJ, really big on the B-boy scene, and
Yeah,
that's where he really like made his mark. So bringing him into the live sets was really dope. And originally before that, Chicken George was my
yeah,
DJ for like a lot of San Antonio shows. Specifically, it was Chicken George, and an incredible DJ in his own right. It's just that I knew that he was on to bigger and better things. You know what I'm saying? And obviously he's like one of the top dudes in the jazz tronica circle, and still a dope hip hop DJ. And he's killed it in Austin ever since he relocated from Houston to Austin. So shout out to DJ Chicken George as well, man. He's a good dude, and I was very grateful to have him in my circle. For a short period of time.
absolutely, man. I was watching the Claude Caps video that was put out, many years ago, and
Oh yeah.
they have the live set with you and Chicken George, and just those cuts are flawless, man. And it's
Yeah, man. He was always good at that. I always
yeah,
remember when he first told me he was going to be a DJ. It's so funny because we were at a recording studio in Houston, and he kept looking at the engineers like turntable setup, and this may have been like 91 probably. And he
oh
was like,
wow,
"Yo, this is what I'm gonna do." Like, he was that adamant, like this is what I'm gonna do. And I was like, "All right, word." And then sure enough, he bought his first setup. And he started collecting vinyl, and pretty soon, like the room in his house, you couldn't even walk in. Then you couldn't walk in the hallways, and then you couldn't walk like in any other room. It was really always about the culture, man. I respected that so much about Chicken George's, because now he's known really for the peddling jazz tronica and doing all of those things and the funk, but he was definitely a well-rounded hip hop DJ to begin with. You know what I'm saying? So real ill, man. Real ill. He's a real ill dude.
that's cool that you say that. He was just very, it wasn't like, hey, I'm thinking about DJing. It was like, no, I'm gonna be a DJ. And you mentioned 91, man. That's early on. Going even further back, like what was your introduction to hip hop, and when did you say you were gonna be an MC?
Oh man, so I think that was always the flack that I got originally, especially from my Houston counterparts, because I was never really down south.
Gotcha.
And that's because I've told the story a million times. I grew
Mhm.
up, and I'm an older head, man. I'm in my early 40s, and I grew up in an era that was predominantly b-boy culture. Like I'm a Beat Street kid. I'm a Crush Groove kid.
Absolutely. Yeah.
A rock album, buying, the first Beastie Boys album. I was already on that path from that time frame in 85, 84, 85. I went to the Fresh Fest at Astroworld in Houston. I seen Houdini, Beastie Boys, Run DMC, like, Jekyll and Hyde. I seen all of these guys performing, man, and it was like you're sitting around going, wow, this is pretty dope. And then it just kind of started like on walks to school in the morning. As an elementary kid, one of my boys was beatboxing. I grew up in a predominantly Black and Hispanic neighborhood, and so just learning. I was the first one to learn like all the words, the radio by LL, and like every morning that was it. Like walking down the street while one's beatboxing, I'm rapping, and it just kind of it elevates there, man. So, and then as with everything, and I think being that you're Texas as well, when we were younger, there was until the induction of the introduction, excuse me, of the Ghetto Boys, there really was no down south hip hop. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
up until that point, I was already influenced by the East Coast for everything that I did, from the fashion to the Pumas to the fat laces to the black lead jeans and the shell top Adidas. Like that was already embedded in me. So by the time the Ghetto Boys came, and then a couple years after that, the emergence of the UGKs and things of that nature, I absolutely love that music. That just wasn't my style. You know what I'm saying? Like I was already like digging deeper into the Rakims and the EPMDs, and then the album that really flipped it around for me was Redman's What, the album. Like when I heard that album, I was like, oh my God, this is something completely different. And then like right after that, Nas is Illmatic. They pretty much shaped everything that I had become after that. And it's funny that Redman album was introduced to me by Marco Cervantes, who is now part of Chicken George's group, the Third Root group.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we went to the same high school together. He was a year under me. And I remember that day he got into the whip and he's like, yo, you got to check this tape out. And he played me the Redman album. And I was like, holy shit. And he was a dope MC. Still is, still a dope MC. But when we were first starting out, he was that dude. Like the Chicken George, Chico, my hype man, and Marco all had a group called Bass Tribe. And they were really, really ill. And then they changed it over to like Wasted Youth or something. And they were still really ill. They're the ones who really broke me into that scene in that 92, 93 era of like MCing and stuff. So I was just a kid that grew up like all of us pretty much. And I never splintered from my road. Like I could have easily adapted a down south style, but I never did. I was so intrigued by lyricism that I was like, this is what I'm going to do. Like I'm going to go this route. And I'm gonna leave these guys over here to go that route, and that's how it panned out, man. So it's crazy.
Yeah, man. No, that's dope. Shout out to Marco. He's what Mexican American Studies, like over at UTSA now.
He's the man, yo. He's like a top notch, professor, man. He's a scholar. Yeah. The kid was always smart. Don't get it twisted. Yeah. I mean, he grew up in the hood just like we did. But he was smarter, man. He always had a different intellect. He always had a different type of walk to him. In regards to what I think his path was going to be in. He's the one that actually, seeing everything that he accomplished, he was one of the ones that actually inspired me to go back to school after all these years. I went back to school about 3 years ago and, to start getting my degrees and start trying to do something else and graduated with highest honors. And I had a 4.0 GPA. Like, it was crazy, man. I never thought that the kid who dropped out of high school would eventually go back to college and be, try to make something a little bit better of myself, man. So it was a wild ride, and shout out to Marco for that and everything he's doing at UTSA and all the accomplishments and accolades that are thrown his way for, the Mexican studies and what he's doing for the culture, man. It's incredibly just inspiring, man, to see what he does, man. It is.
Absolutely, man. Props for that, definitely. Now, you call yourself a blue-collared MC.
Yeah.
You talk a little bit about that? And I think you've already kind of mentioned some points, but just a little more in detail what you mean by a blue-collared MC.
Well, I mean, I think it really had a lot to do with the fact that, the way we grew up, man. Like, we grew up in the era of, like, hand-me-downs and, my parents divorced when I was young. And, I grew up in what some would consider a disadvantage in regards to neighborhoods and upbringing and things of that nature. But that blue collar really came because I really worked. I really did work for a lot of the stuff that I was trying to accomplish. In Houston at the time that I really started to get a lot of traction was really based off the fact that I was following the blueprint of Chaotix, who is as Mike and Damien and the R. And they were incredibly inspiring on my upbringing as well in the game, and to see how they were moving and to see the type of music they were putting out and knowing that they had to work, hard for all that. They weren't handed shit, yo. They would just get up and do what they had to do and was killing shows and was getting placements on bigger, newer websites that were popping up back in the days of Real Audio and whatnot,
Yeah.
It was really great to see, man. And I've always told them, like, I was always on y'all's heels, dog. Like, I was always on y'all's heels, man. Everything that y'all was doing. And then to be able to befriend them down the line and be a part of their projects and vice versa, that was really it. But really the whole blue collar thing was that I work for everything. I got that from my father. And, I've been blessed not to have to work a corporate gig since like 2005, yo. Like, the day that I walked away from my corporate gig back then, I never went to work for another paycheck until I got to Philadelphia. And even then, that environment wasn't the same as when I was younger. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was my wife's family here in Philly that put me on to a gig just to help me get on my feet until I decided what it was that I wanted to do. So that was a blessing, man. And if you think about that in retrospect, that's like 13 years prior to when I first started working, where I didn't have to work for nobody. You know what I mean? Like, I was doing DJ gigs. Like, I learned how to mix. Being a rapper, you know, the next logical step as a producer, and then after that would be to learn how to, you know, to DJ and mix. And I used to rock one of the biggest nightclubs in downtown Houston, man. You know, every Friday night, Saturday night, and it was incredible, man. It was a good feeling, and you know,
Nice.
but that's just basically what that meant. Just working hard, man. A blue collar. Like I didn't have a silver spoon in my mouth. My family wasn't rich. I didn't, you know, I didn't have all of the breaks. And interestingly enough, I think that's kind of one of the things that ultimately hurt my career. You know what I mean? So it's crazy not having the advantages or being able to, you know, have all the, you know, money for videos and all of that. Like I don't have a lot of visuals, even to this day. I don't. And certain little things like that, man, just didn't work out to my advantage. I was, you know, trying at the time. I was trying to be like, you know, a husband and pay rent and lights and gas. And you know, once that real life shit hits, man, a lot of this takes a back seat. But that's also what inspired a lot of my music. You know, I was never like
Yeah.
the serious punchline rhymer. I was always more like, let me tell you my story, man. And if you feel it, you feel it. You know, it's more aggressive. It's more realistic. There's never anything in a rhyme that I said that I hadn't did personally. Period. Like that's just how that goes. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And so looking at back to you know, the first album, you have, you know, producers from other countries. It always seemed like, you know, it was bigger and even, you know, chaotics, you know, because I grew up, you know, here in Texas too, and I always, you know, I heard about them early on. I didn't realize they were that big. We
Oh yeah.
actually we went out to Amsterdam and Germany, and you know, seeing their stuff out there already in some of the stores, I was just like, okay, yeah, Chaotix is much bigger.
Oh
And
yeah.
so early on, you know, like I said, you had a producer, Moonshine from Sweden, right?
Yeah, my boy Robert Martinson, like Moonshine, man. Shuva Hendish. I'm gonna be sure to send him this link and let him know. We still talk. We still talk. Actually, you know, Moon started out really strong for me, man. He did, you know, we met each other online. You know, the quick version of this story. We met each other online. You know, he sent me some. He would always say, "You got a really dope voice, man, but your production sucks." And he was being honest, like he was being dead honest. And I was like, all right, bet. So what do you think? He's like, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna send you some beats, record them in your recording studio. Then I'm gonna show you how to zip them up and create a file and send it to me, and I'm gonna mix it here. And I was like, is this possible? Because this is like 2001,
Yeah,
2002 that we really start culminating this album. And then pretty much like it turned into one track. Then I would rush home from work and I'd find another beat because there's like a 7 hour time difference. So I would find another beat in my email and I'm like, yo, okay, bet. Then I would take that one and record it. And by the morning, like he would mix it. By the time I got home from work, it was mixed. And then I would have another beat. And before you know it, man, in like, you know, maybe 2 or 3 months, we had like 15 records and that became like what Exhale was. And it was just this incredible feeling. And then by the time that album dropped, like in '03 or '04, that was my first, you know, foray out the gate. I booked a flight and I went to Sweden and I met them guys. And it was like the first time, it was the first time meeting them, but it was like we had known each other forever, man. You know what I'm saying? Like there was no weirdness. There was no, I'm not used to this. This is crazy. The country, you know, Stockholm in itself is beautiful. Sweden is beautiful, but it was another level, man, another
yeah,
level of like everything. And that's when I was really starting to get that feeling like, oh shit, you know, I'm on to something, you know, we got something. So yeah, man, shout out to Moon, man. And then, you know, he did the lockdown sessions for me right after that. And then there was a big hiatus, but only because his personal life. You know,
yeah,
he had sons, he had, you know, daughters. You know, he had to do what he had to do, as a father, as a parent, as a, you know, as a man, like to take care of his family. So it took a back seat. You know what I'm saying? And
yeah.
it was a more long extended hiatus than I would have liked. So it caused me to have to shift directions and move on to different things. But I've never been able to recapture that feeling that I felt when I worked exclusively with Moonshine. That's how big of an inspiration and a factor he was to my early success in this music.
Man, you know, it's interesting to say, or how you say that, different time zones, and I've never really thought about it. It was like y'all were really able to work almost like on a 24-hour schedule. You would do
Yeah,
your work, and he'd come in and fresh,
yeah,
opposed to, you know, both being here and waiting until the next day because it's, you know, sleep and whatnot. So while you were sleeping, he was probably working and
It
vice
was
versa.
working. Yeah, exactly. That was always the funny thing, man. But it was so refreshing, man. That by the time I got home from work and I'd open up that email and it'd be like mix one, exhale, and I was like, yo, like he's killing it. He's just a talented dude, man, and a good person. And I'm really glad that that friendship has endured. I mean, that's 16, 17 years of friendship with him. And I just talked to him the other day. Like I just literally like, we exchange messages all the time. And we always talk about, trying to rehash something. Um,
Mhm.
Last year was the 15-year anniversary for Exhale. We wanted to do something, but unfortunately, like a couple of events hit, then actually COVID actually kicked in and kind of changed, the landscape for everybody. It was wild, man. Like it was wild, man.
Yeah, man. I wanted to talk about COVID a bit, and just because everyone I've talked to, I mean, there's no shows going on, and just creative people I've had to become. And
Right.
one thing I was talking to Cross,
Oh yeah, I
yeah,
remember.
just I was just talking to him the other day, and I was just like, one of the positives you could look at it though is that I think a lot of people are more accessible and online. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, these conversations or connections could be made. And, early on when you were saying even back in 2001 and sharing files, and I think that's how everyone's doing their projects these days, it seems like.
Oh yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's rare. It's rare that you got like in studio sessions with the actual engineer producer. I'm not saying that it's a totally forgotten art,
Mhm.
but like for instance, Vinnie Paz, like Paz still records pretty much on the same day of the week at the same studio with the same engineer who's Scott Stallone, who is an incredible, the best, hands down, legendary engineer. And is constantly working, man, working, and that's why his music is still and his albums are still very much cohesive because I think that he's got that. I gotta sit in here with my engineer with the beat. I gotta be in the studio area. He has to be able to hear how I lay this down. Like, and I don't mean to speak for Paz, but I'm saying that that's what my thought process is. And it's a formula that he's never strayed away from. And obviously, by the amount of work that he still puts out, it works 100% for him. You know what I'm saying? So I wish I had that. I'm not saying I don't have the work ethic. I just find myself not having absolute motivation at the time. Like, I'm one of those persons that once I allow a million things to start running through my brain, man, something's gonna lose. Something's gonna take a back seat. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so,
So,
what is your writing process like? Do you write rhymes beforehand, or do you wait for the beat, or what would be the
I
materials?
when I did have, and let me just clarify what I mean by the motivation.
Oh yeah,
It's not that I don't love hip hop. If you look at my Instagram, you see that I still throw up loose verses every now and then, or on the SoundCloud, just throwaway tracks and things of that nature. I
gotcha.
still very much keep an ear to everything. Even my rhyme style, I've learned how to do all of it. Like, if you need a trap record, I can write it, record it, and probably sound just as current as any of the new wave of rappers that are out there doing this particular genre of music. That's because I study. I've always studied
Mhm.
deliveries and how to write, and I'm a writer first, man. So when I'm not doing this, dog, if you looked at my hard drive, you would bug out that there's like R&B cover one. I did a 30 seconds to Mars cover the other day where I'm singing the record. Like, you know what I mean? Just, I mean, the world's never gonna hear that because that's my creative, that's
Gotcha.
my creative, my creative space that's only intended for me. But it just goes to show that I'm still a fan of music to begin with. So my writing process is really strange. Sometimes I'll jot down things. Most of the time, I do the Rain Man thing in my head, until I keep repeating bars until I got the 16 or the 24, or I pick up the phone and might scribble a couple lines, or I might think about something. But I don't really have notepads or pens in my studio. If I was to take a snapshot of my studio desk that I'm sitting on right now, you won't find a pen or a pad anywhere in here, man. I'm not saying that's a good thing, and I'm not saying I'm Jay-Z. I'm saying that sometimes the thoughts are so sporadic that in order for me to get them out to where they make sense, I have to let them fester in my head. Like I can't scribble on a piece of paper and then come back to it. Like it won't work that way for me. So,
Got you.
and I have to really feel like I have to feel what I'm doing. So that itch and that creative spark has really been coming back here like in the last 2, 3 weeks. And this is a terrible thing to say, man, but I'm at my absolute best when I feel that things around me are at their worst.
Hmm.
Like it's almost like I feel like I'm at my best when I'm drowning because that's the time that I'm gonna fight to keep my head above water, and that's when you get the best Zilla material possible, you know. And you factor in this COVID, factor in the fact that I'm a first time father, here in the last like my son's gonna be 2 in January. That has been an eye awakening moment in my life. I've always been good with kids. I've been in previous relationships in which I've raised kids and done things of that nature. But to have your own son and realize that everything that you're doing from this point on is to create a legacy, and even for my stepdaughter, like creating a legacy, that's a very, very powerful feeling that really starts to circulate in my head to get me to be like, all right, Zell, it's time now. I think you've laid off long enough. My last project was 2016, which was Mosaic Music.
Yeah.
And I laid off from that point until right now. And now them wheels are starting to turn. And I know it sounds cliche, but the next thing that you get from me is probably going to be like the opus, the best that I've ever done out of anything. 'Cause I'm sharper, I'm older, I'm wiser. I've lived life a little bit longer, through trying times, through the birth, of my son, like through the death of my father, who unexpectedly passed away in March.
Sorry, man.
It's yeah, I appreciate that, man. Like that was tough. But it's finally giving me the canvas that I needed. You know what I'm saying? Like I just needed to pull the paintbrushes back out. That's all, man. Like it's
No,
crazy.
for sure, man. And is Mosaic Music, was that what Martyr Music became? Was it just a name change, or is
I
there
think it was. I had started working on modern music because that was the last track that I put on. What was it? Interview with a Monster.
interview with the monster? Yeah.
And that just goes to show how much of a gap. Like once I dropped interview, I should have went directly into modern music because I was at a really low point in
Uh-huh.
my life at that time, like a really really low dark place, and that's where Martyr was about to go. Um,
Okay.
but I realized that uh, that became like a dangerous exercise, and trying to move forward with another project that was full of all this angst and black and dark and hurtful feelings. And to be honest, I think that was the point where my life splintered and I didn't want to feel that way no more. So I was like, you know what? Instead of giving them another project that's going to be filled with all this terrible shit, like, let me just scale back. Let me get back into writing. Let me get back into feeling like what made me love hip hop to begin with.
Yeah.
The dope records, the metaphor records, the spitting, the shit that got everybody like, yo, he's saying, the craziest thing, whatever. It just became like me just throwing out tracks on SoundCloud, a mix here, a mix there. Sometimes it was sprinkled with, heavy sentiment. Sometimes it was just like, what I call being in my premiere mode, where like the guru type mode, where you just like,
Yeah.
yo, I'm just flowing the flow, man. Like, let's get it. So yeah, man, and then before you know it, man, modern music was done, and 4 years later, man, 5 years later, here I come again, like finally ready with Mosaic. I met another producer out of Texas as well, named Zeke Elliott. I mean Zeke Elliott. Damn, Cowboys. Wow. Zeke Lopez, my bad, yo.
Got you,
Oh,
got
they would kill me for that Dallas shit in Philly right now, man. My head would be on stake. But Zeke Lopez, man, he called himself LP. He had a sound that at that time really, really resonated with me. And I saw him online. He got at me at one of the shows that we had did at the club that I was spinning at. I brought him down to my lab that was in the basement of that club. He showed me some beats, and maybe 6, 8 months, a year later, after that initial meeting, he sent me all the beats for Mosaic, and we smashed it, yo. And it was another slept on project, man. Like it just of course, my hardcore, my diehard fans, like they copped it, they supported, they did what they did, but it still was slept on like to the masses, man. And you know, that's a whole nother story. It makes it really hard for me to listen to my catalog. Like I won't listen to a lot of my catalog, but on the days that I am riding around and pop in my old, you know, whatever it was, you know, my hard drive or my flash disk that got everything on it, and I
Yeah.
listen to things that I've done, I always give myself the same speech like, Jesus Christ, dog, you should have been bigger than what you are. You
Yeah,
should,
no, for sure.
and that's still coming from a humble place, but I've always said this and I've always meant it. And even in 2020 right now, I stick to my guns. You put me on any track with any MC on any genre and any level, and I'm going to give them a run for their money, no matter who it is. No matter who it is. Like, that's how I've always felt. That's how I've always carried myself. But I won't sit back and tell people like, oh yeah, I'm the God, I'm the great, I'm the no. I'll just say that
Yeah.
I don't sell myself short because I listen to my past catalog, and the irony about that is there's a million things that I wrote back then that are coming to fruition now, and you
Yeah.
couldn't tell if I recorded that track 10 years ago or 10 days ago.
Gotcha.
So I think that speaks volumes for the type of music that I have put out that's kind of just fell by the wayside. You know what I mean?
You know, and it kind of reminds me of, you know, Karis one that talked about how anyone in Billboard's top 10, he's like, I got a song that will end their career right now, you know. And and then you're talking about how you do these different genres and stuff that may never even be released, but
Right.
it's sharpening your, you know, your sword at all time.
Right. I mean, that's just the love of music, man. I got a really good appreciation for a ton of stuff, you know. Like, and again, not just hip hop. It's really hard because a lot of the hip hop that, you know, you and I probably have grown up on, it's not really made, or they don't make that anymore, man. Like,
Yeah.
so you don't really get that. You're not getting that anymore, and it's really tough, man, because you know, wherever you were inspired, every time you heard you know, a KRS or a Guru or a Redman or a Nas or a Jay-Z, whatever these things were that had you hyped up, then all of a sudden, like, they're not creating that anymore, and you have to go back to the classics. So that's a dangerous peak because then you can find yourself stuck at golden era delivery, and I don't always want to be like that for every record that I put out. You know what I'm saying? So mine thinks a little bit more outside of the scope. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And earlier you talked about Vinnie Paz, and how did you get hooked up with Army of the Pharaohs?
Well, I can attribute that to Scuba. You know, Scuba was always doing the good promotions for the Primates back in the day.
Yeah.
One of the first times that he, I think he was doing, you know, a San Antonio show, he put me on the opening act for them. And then I guess again at Emo's we did it, and I was the opening act.
And this is for what, Jedi Mind Tricks? Or?
Yeah, for Jedi Mind Tricks, right. So that created the blueprint for me to be able to chop it up with, you know, Vin and all of them, and you know, get to know them. Now, Outer Space came to Houston, and I remember it was always a funny story because they came to Houston and they did a show at Walters on Washington, and the diehard JMT fans were there, but everybody else they didn't really give a fuck less. It was a light crowd. I don't know if it was promoted poorly by the H-Town promoter, but it just didn't do well. And I remember meeting Vinny, and I brought my friend at the time, you know, who was a boxer at the time. It was Rocky Juarez, and I remember bringing him to the show because Vinny's a big boxing fan. And I introduced Vin, and it was always funny, man, because I walked up to Vinny to introduce myself while they were unloading the van. And I was like, yo, Vin. And before I can even finish, he saw Rocky. He was like, yo, Rocky, started to talk right past me and shit. But he was cool, man. We came back. But long story short about that, you know, particular day, I always remembered the thing that he told me after my set that night and after the show. He was like, you know, Zill, you seem like a really good dude, and I'm going to be honest with you, man. There's some people in this world that have it and some that don't, and you got it. But I got to be real fucking honest with you, man. You're in the wrong fucking city for whatever you're trying to accomplish. Like, it's not going to work out. So you're going to have to make a change. But I give you all the blessings in the world. stay blessed, man. Stay humble, and I hope to see you again. And it's all good. And then that was when they were doing the Legacy of Blood tour, and then I met Outer Space and all of them, and those are friendships that have lasted from that point. But the very next album, the Servants album, I noticed that on the liner notes of that album, they gave me a shout out, and I thought that was like incredible, man. I was like, yo, that's crazy. And then before you know it, I'm doing the San Antonio shows with them, the Austin shows with them. They stopped doing the Houston run because they knew there was nothing in it. That friendship culminated then, and that was 2003. So, yeah, 2003. Yeah, I think that's when it was, man. So, ironically enough, that's a 17-year friendship, man. And in 2012, I guess, Vin can see right after the interview that I was really, really like trying to get something going. I dropped the interview in 2011, and I asked him for a verse. I never asked since that time. I've never asked Vinny for another verse, not for any reason in particular, but I know that everybody and their mama come at him for shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
I never wanted to be that dude that would ask. You notice my projects don't have a lot of features, man. So I never wanted to be that dude, to insult anybody's intelligence about anything and be like, but he gave me the feature, no problem, on time, like he said. And then, in 2012, he was like, yo, man, you want to be down with AOTP and let's get it. And that gave me a really good alley-oop that kind of carried me for the next couple years. You know what I'm saying? So, shout out Vinnie Paz, man. Shout out Outer Space and, all of the AOTP. That's where that came from. I can't tell you if there's ever going to be another project after the last two. Not for any specific reason in general. I would love it if there was. Shit, if they gave me the ball to quarterback the project, I would put it together. You know what I'm saying? Just for the sake of putting it out, because I know if we did one, everyone's going to eat it up. But, we'll see what happens with that, man. But it was a blessing and, one of the factors for, actually being in Philly as well, to be closer to, that live music scene up until all of this occurred again. So, yeah. Wild ride, man.
Yeah, wow, man. I never knew Scuba had a little part in that. And
yeah,
Scuba, man, he definitely he talks about Primates, and even before Primates even started, we were just a bunch of dumb kids freestyling, and I think Scuba came in and kind of organized some stuff. And
but who wasn't, man? Who wasn't? Like to this day, I've always cited my first performance at the Lounge at Avenue B is like one of my favorite times, favorite performances, favorite whatever. I met Shaq that night, and he's still a good friend there, man, and just a lot of things that transpired, man. And yeah, you're right, man. Scuba was on top of doing what he needed to do, and it was great, dog. And it's great to see where he's at in life right now too, man. So shout out Scuba, and it's crazy, man.
No, yeah, shout out Scuba, and like you mentioned Shaq. If for those listening that may not know, graffiti artist and just artists now doing a lot of work with like San Antonio Spurs in the city of San Antonio. It's kind of
Los Otros, man. The Los Otros.
Los Otros, yeah, Los Otros for sure. And so early on, just hip hop. It's always really dope to see where people that start off with just some hip hop stuff and how it's carried them to other parts of their career, right? So where can people find you online?
I mean, my Facebook social media presence has been at an all-time low. If I'm not posting pictures of my wife and my family and my son and my daughter, like I'm not really on it because I couldn't deal with all the political rhetoric. That's a whole nother conversation hotbed of things that trigger my anxiety. So yeah, I couldn't do it. But to be honest with you, man, like if they want to follow my music, the SoundCloud is still under Zilla the Monster. I pulled down my website because I'm on the verge of putting something together. I'm a screen printer. I've also been a screen printer, man, for like over 18 years, man. So like that's pretty much my full-time gig. Like, I'm able to eat off of it. I'm able to provide for my family. I've picked up techniques over the years that are second to none. I consider myself a master printer. So
I remember that now because you would always come through with product, right?
Oh yeah, that was why, man. At first I bought the press just to make my own product, and then it turned down into making product for everybody else. But most of my interaction with people, man, can be done like on Instagram, man, at Zilla the Monster, all one word. My Facebook, it's still under like, Zilla the Monster or V-Zilla. You search any of them, you're going to find me. I'm not really hard to track down or find, not at all. Like, I'm very simple. The SoundCloud.com/Zilla the Monster, all one word. And a quick Google search will pretty much put you into any of that, where to link me up to. All my music is on every platform. Almost every album except for Lockdown and Exhale is online. And I haven't put those up because there's a couple things that I would like to remaster, a couple things that I would like to change, like in terms of the way the album laid out before I put those up. So when I do, they'll be considered like a newly remastered version. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
They're all on Spotify, Tidal, iTunes, Mosaic. You can find everything that I do, on all of the, the search engines there. And, and in my business, for anybody interested in, needing merch printed, man, like my Instagram is Zilla Prince Merch. Everything is pretty much tied into the name. But, it's been an incredible journey, man. And 2020 has been very eye-awakening, and it's put a lot of things back in perspective for me. So hopefully those are the things that I need to get me back into the saddle, because I'll be honest with you, like I miss the old me. I miss recording. I got an incredible studio in my basement, but you got to have the motivation first, and that's all coming, man. It's all slowly starting to get there. So hopefully that's something by, the beginning of the new year, you guys got something, to be able to rock and be like, oh, the old man still got it. You know what I mean? No.
Yeah, man. Definitely I've seen, many blessings and thank you for taking time. Anything else you want to add?
Other than the fact that, man, it's good to see, man, where all my, my true supporters are at. And it's good to see a lot of my past bandmates and, things of that nature. And, even my affiliates and SA and everybody, man, how they've all, like you said, they've splintered into their careers. And the way Bavu Blakes would say it is hip hop grew up.
Absolutely.
I love to see that. Unfortunately, I'm still a kid at heart, so you're still going to get a lot of the profane, vulgar, street-related things that go around me, especially because my environment, too. Like I said, Philly's a tough city, man. Kudos to everybody that was born and raised here, because they're tough, man. Like, you had to have been a tough bird, man, to be here from the jump. Not that Texas is no slouch in any way, especially in certain hoods, but Philly's a different breed, and I got a lot of love for a lot of of the people and places in the environment and the music scene and things here. And hopefully after all of this COVID stuff eventually passes, man, we can get back to what we truly love. And my only parting thought is for everyone to stay blessed, stay humble, man, and protect your family and do what you got to do. We're not here for a long time, but we're here for a good time, man. So we got to make sure that everything's all, great with it. You know what I mean?
All right, man. I appreciate your time, Zilla. Coming from a fan to following, your music and stuff. Again, just thank you for taking the time to even have this conversation with me.
Yeah, word up. I appreciate you reaching out to me, man. I know it's been a long time, man, and it's a blessing, man. It's a blessing that people still remember that, and I'm thankful for that. Those are the little sparks that I need to remind me of, the things that I need to do, like to get myself back up into a position of where people pay attention. You know what I mean? That's all you need to do is pay attention. We're a lot older now. We're should be a lot wiser. So that means our ears should still be there to, tune in to good music.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you on that. Peace, blessings to you and your family.
What up, man?
And I'll keep in contact, man.
Word up, man. You got how to find me, man. I'm not hard. So, man, thank you for this, and hope to talk to you soon, brother.
All right, man. Peace.
Peace.
Yeah. Tell y'all my story, man. I only got 4 minutes to do it, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Let's go. There ain't nothing I can't handle. My candle done been blown out many times, but still I came back with ammo. It's Pulp Fiction meets non-fiction type scripture. Allow me by 4 minutes to paint all the picture. I was born in the 80s during the rise of hip-hop, before the Ghetto Boys dropped during the LL WAP. The Fresh Fest, it was poppin'. Beastie Boys and Houdini, back when breakers broke bed behind walls of graffiti. Lead jeans and them parachute pants and crushed groove. Practice Last Dragon moves, cause showing up was that dude. Got the steez from up top on them AM stations, couple months behind, but it fell in the rotation. Walking to school, beatboxing with my hooligan crew. Who'da knew that one day this here's what I do? Every day we study lyrics from Rakim to Rick. It's showtime at the Apollo, had the moves on hit. Then Big Daddy Kane records and that Cool G rap. Back when studios were task cams and no last dats. Real to real and DJs on the wheels of steel. Lonnie Mack and Steve Fournier was H-Town real. Aggravated and my man Sight was building a name. And all I ever really wanted was a spot in the game. See, I was only about 12 when the rhyme bug hit. And I was rapping about whatever I could fit in my shit. I grew up on all D-Mel route behind the Kroger. Back when black and Latinos were going shoulder to shoulder. Back when colors had us thinking we was Bloods and Crips. Around the very first time I got my hand on clips. But see, the music was a constant, it held me down. Started entering these contests around the town. Kokomo's was like the only spot that gave me respect. Cause I was nicer than a motherfucker, plus I'm a mix. The 91 came calling and my school days dead. 93 I dropped out and caught a case instead. But by then I'm rocking Redman and Wu-Tang Jones. Then my steez all changed when I first heard Nas. I started thinking about the dope game. My uncle was murdered in 92. 2 years later carried the burden. 94 I was wildin', sipping 40s for sport. Constantly trying to write my lyrics, smoking packs and imports. Mob Deep, Big L, shit I started to swell. Started thinking of my name as something illy to sell. Now the ghetto boy is huge and Scarface was nice. Until this day the true king of the South on mics. And all the horrorcore heads from Reno to Nip. Then UGK straight killing on some brand new shit. But I was lost in the East Coast frame of mind. Because there wasn't nothing Southern back around my time. And there we were in 95 when New York was live. Biggie Smalls and Big Pun, I hate the God they died. And yo, I can't forget Tribe and Gangstar arrived. And West Coast was on smash like we all could thrive. Every coast had it poppin', all original too. Like hip hop was a voice that we could all speak through. 96, 97 was some turbulent years. The music turned to a feud and then we lost our peers. Pac paid with his life, the same shit for Big. And it seems like it ain't been the damn same since. But on the flip side, the underground was doubling up. Chaotix rep for my city and was bubbling up. They dropped the classic LP and started touring large. I was following they footsteps all over the yard. 2K had us rocking shows around the globe. And when I finally got to meet them, let the truth be told. I told D and Big Mun, you guys are one of a kind. But see, my name is V-Zilla and I'm ready to shine. Got my man Chicken George in my new LP. Exhale was what it's called and gave that shit for free. That's when the city took notice of this Mexican kid who flipped that gritty street shit like I was flipping my lid. Yeah, I know that I'm forgetting other serious kids, but that's another fucking story that I never forget. So here we are in 03, now I'm doing my shows. That's when Jedi Mind Tricks was killing all of the road. They did a tour stop in Houston, allowed me to open. I just wanted to be noticed like it's all I was hoping. I met Planet Meg Crip, then I talked to Vinnie. He told me I was mad nice, but in the wrong damn city. Then a year later, did another show for them brothers. That's when I noticed my shout out inside their CD cover. That was the beginning of 12 long years as friends. And then they made the boy Pharaoh help me get my ends. Taught me loyalty is everything and fam is fam. So when I say that they're my brothers, in return that I am. Oh man, I never thought that I would see this day where every word that I record is the shit that you play. I thank God cause nobody ever been that realer. And in the end, there won't ever be no one like Zilla for realer.
So, as artists, man, it's like we got this never-ending piece of canvas, right? And what we paint is not always going to please to everybody's eyes, and that's fine. Like, it's not supposed to. And I'm only as good as my mood. So right now, all these patterns in my head, they're like mosaic. You know what I mean?
I think they got me figured wrong, Pop. They like Zilla not in my top 10, 20, 30 even. Ain't even know he dropped, but yeah, I'm still here through all that chitter chat. All that slick talking under your breath, mumbling, let me get it back. Still one of the nicest, even if not considered. Wasn't pick of the litter, but still shit on the illest. I'm cracked. What you hearing is grown folk on a drum roll. Literary pros from one pro to the whole globe. Moods change like seasons. Yo, my season right now is just a sprinkle of one of the many reasons I rhyme. You catching me at a time when time's all I really have. And this path is unpaved. And some days I'm sitting around bummy and unshaved. Scribble couple lines in the pages that my mind displays. I can't always be the shoot 'em up cat. I got a record that follows me from the past that I can never take back. Spin number in the system where corruption is at. My consumption kinda different at this point of attack. I sit staring at my memory bank. My slate clean, but I still feel the burden from the weight of the stand. What's the purpose of this music without truth? Cause I ain't never spoke about nothing that I never really do. Just a poet with a pen in the street. My feet walk through the ghetto, even take a train straight through the beast. Don't got the luxury of living high above my means. My cupboard's still full of rice and beans. I transcend through beats, feel a breeze from the gun smoke. Hood ball player that used to run dope and cop no kicks. I rarely talk about political shit, cause everybody on social media thinking their opinion is rich. I don't debate with a cat that makes facts and pieces. Can't provide information, can't state their thesis. Yeah, this hooligan is back in the class, because I realize the money from the music is like going too fast. I've been heartbroken, let down ever a Thanksgiving, and never had a label to offer me all the fixings. But it's cool cause my conscience clear, and what you're hearing is the reflection of soul being told through the mirror. My inner demons are asleep right now, hibernating through the fall into the winter. Make that heat come out, and make the horns come out, and let the roar leak out. Then every track that I record will be that raw shit now, cause you gotta show the masses that you're more than one lane. And Zilla can adapt to more things than Bourdain. I still love hard tracks, beats that go bang, but every now and then I gotta fuel my soul train. Don't wanna fall off of the track, I've been riding the rails, closer to feeling like I'm sleeping on nails. But if it helps me hold my shit together, I guess it means I'm better than what I was when I was sleeping in cells. And I ain't seeking a cell, or even peeking through veils. I'm just breathing a little easier from being myself. I don't gotta spit all that rah-rah, increasing my cells. I'll just save it for the album, call it Season in Hell. And when it drops, you gon' feel that flame, because my pen's dipped in gas with a striking point that starts on the page. Yeah.
So now you see, right? Now you see what it means to be Mosaic, man. It's just, I never was really concerned about fame and all of that. I just want to be great. I just want motherfuckers to say when they heard Zilla that he can do anything, you know what I mean? Like, he can flip any style over any beat and stay true to the essence of what being an artist is. That's all I'm trying to do, man. That's all I've ever really been good at.